could you ask the question again? Okay. Yeah, go on.
Yeah, I'll mute everybody so there's no noise. Go ahead, Araprasad, unmute yourself.
Okay, what you're saying is at T0, the space and time started. Before that, it was not there. Correct?
So, I suppose you can say that, but then I will ask you, what is T? What is T? So when you say T is equal to 0, you're saying, you're assuming T. You're assuming an axis called time axis, which keeps on stretching into the future. And then it stretches to the past also. And now I can ask the question, how far in the past you will stretch it? What is T is equal to? Where will you put T is equal to 0 in this axis? We don't know.
Is Big Bang equals T0?
Yeah, so I suppose physicists say T is equal to 0. But even they recognize when Big Bang occurred, time itself did not exist. Now, I've not studied all the Big Bang theory and all, but they should say it. They should say that, because otherwise criticism will be, you're assuming time exists. So we can't even say a time when time did not exist. If I say, maybe that's a little better. So even to say T is equal to 0, you must assume time exists. And so I suppose for our understanding, see, this shows how conditioned we are about time. The time is such an important attribute in our life. And our whole life is revolved around this day and night and last week and last year and birthdays and things like that. I was born, I have a date of birth. And this time axis is so strong. It's very much there. Let it be there. Nothing wrong with the time axis, mind you. But that time itself is part of the creation. It's part of this creation. Like everything else, time axis is also part of the creation. So you really can't say at T is equal to 0, that is the creation we are talking about. Big Bang occurred at T equal to 0. You can say it if you imply that time itself was created during Big Bang. If this is what you mean, okay, you're welcome to use the phrase at T is equal to 0, Big Bang was created. You're welcome to use that statement. Because here time itself is a creation. How will you explain? How will you say? What we say is, Brahma is Anadi. And later on, Maya will be introduced, just got introduced. We will say Maya also is Anadi. And Maya Sahita Brahma created this world. Maya and Brahma together created this world. This is what we say. And that is Anadi. Anadi means beginningless. Correct?
Yeah.
And therefore, the Shastram talks about this Srishti and Pralaya. Srishti and Pralaya. Srishti and Pralaya. Srishti and Pralaya. Like this hen and egg, and hen and egg, and hen and egg. If you ask the question, when did the first hen get created? You're asking me that question. When did the first egg happen? There is no answer to that. There's no answer to that. Because if you say a particular time, then I will ask the question, hey, for that egg to be created, there must have been something before that. Whatever time you say t equal to 0 or t equal to something, then the t equal to -1, something must have been there. Without that something, this egg could not have been created. And like this, we can keep on going back. Therefore, the phrase t is equal to 0 itself is a questionable phrase. Therefore, our Shastram says Anadi. There is no such thing as a beginning of time, because time itself did not exist. And Brahmashraya Maya. But this, our Shastram acknowledges that because this Jagat is Mithya, there is, things are produced, things are destroyed also. Then therefore there is Srishti and there is Pralaya. Shastram accepts, hey, yeah, this world can disappear also. Long time it may take, but yeah, planets were created at a particular time and planets can get destroyed also. No problem. If somebody says this Milky Way was created, generated by some explosion, forget Milky Way. Just look at this, our solar system. Little simpler. Solar system, when did it get created? First of all, is it a creation or not? First question, simple question.
It is.
It is a creation, of course. It is something that was, it's so intelligently put together. It's mind-boggling intelligence. And so a conscious being must have been behind this solar system. And if you insist that this was created at a particular time, then go ahead, figure it out. And let physicists tell us the answer. Vedantan is not so worried about how long this solar system was created. But tell me a time, if you say it was created so many million or billion years ago, if the dinosaurs themselves are million years old, then I have to assume that this earth has to be much more older than that. Okay? So, okay, you tell me a time, fine, that is when it was created. But there will be an end. And then the Shastram talks about, again, Srishti will be there. Srishti will be there. This is why some people talk about, we talk about human life on this earth. There is an evolution, there is a history, right? Going back, there's a history.
Yeah.
And they talk about evolution, and before that there were unicellular and organisms, and before that there was something else, and diatoms, and before that something, and before that something, and they keep going back, offering these theories. Some people say, how do you know, if you say human being was 50,000 years ago or 100,000 years ago, and before that it was monkey, etc. How do you know, let's say all this started some X years ago. How do you know, first of all, that there is not a similar life somewhere else in this universe? Nobody can prove that, and nobody can disprove that also. Number one. Number two, how do you know that, okay, some long time ago, none of this life existed and there was absolutely no life? How do you know before that there was some life and all that life perished, and then this is the next stage of the so-called creation as we call it, as we know it? How do you know? Like this, some scientists have asked the question, which is what we say in Vedanta. We say long ago, we have said, hey, it doesn't matter, any number of times this has happened, and it has kept on happening. And this life will end, and the next Srishti will begin. Like this we say, casually we say. Casually means it is part of our ecosystem, this dharmic ecosystem. So, long answer to your question, can we say at time t is equal to 0, this Big Bang occurred. Say, I'll be interested to know what the physicists say. It's actually a question to be asked to a physicist. Because I have not read so much about Big Bang and all. Maybe if him can send us some good articles on this kind of discussion, perhaps we can educate ourselves.
It's the same language. They also say that time does not exist before that. So it's even meaningless to ask the question, what happened before Big Bang? So that's what they say.
Correct. So it's the question itself is a wrong question. At t is equal to 0 means you're saying you already assumed time. Access time is given, and I'm going back and I'm stopping at a particular point. Did Big Bang created that point? Wrong question, because time itself did not exist. We're talking about time itself is time
But
doesn't.
you just said space and time are synonymous. I mean, are at the same time. Didn't you say that?
Yeah, so I said space and time did not exist. Space and time are part of the creation. If our inquiry is, how did this universe come about? If you ask, I am saying space and time should be included in the word universe. In the word universe, space and time should be included. That is what I'm saying. There's something to mull over, something to think about.
We don't have concept of counting years. 2009, 10, 19, 20. You see Panchangam, with the same name repeats every 60 years. So last year it was He Vilambi. So after 60 years, same He Vilambi name will come again. So we don't have any chronology in our system. There is no chronology. So that is number one. Number two, even a physicist in RF analysis, there is something called a signal analysis. They always talk about minus infinity to plus infinity. If they take a particular time called t tending to delta t, particular part of the spectrum, and analyze it so that there is some intelligence in them. Is there any intruders in this? There is any extra noise in this? Is there somebody has intruded? Radar noise is there in that. So even physicists know there is minus infinity to plus infinity. But here we are adding minus infinity to plus infinity, and again plus infinity, again one more cycle, minus infinity to plus infinity, and it goes on. Plus infinity to minus infinity, like that we are evolving, like Panchangam names.
Yeah.
So that's why many of the events are not recorded in our history.
So yeah, so those are all good. Those are all what do you call it? Ways in which our thinking is manifest, and our dharma thinking is all cyclic. And so even as Venkateshanji pointed out, our ears are also repeating constantly. Well, in a way, even in January, February also repeats constantly, no doubt. But
Here.
The whole,
I'm talking about here.
The whole, I mean, yeah, so, yeah, exactly. Here, you're right. So the whole thinking is like that. Our whole thinking is based on that this cyclicism is observed also. It's observed. Even our astronomy, our rishis were all astronomers too. And this Panchangam is an output of that. And somebody told me the other day, this Panchangam, somebody is, people, there is a blind person in Coimbatore, you just tell him about your date and time when your grandfather or grandmother passed away. He will tell you when the next Shraddham is coming and the next year. He will tell you.
Yes.
This person's mind, is without using any computer, without going to website mypanchang.com, all these things he's saying. And look at that knowledge. It's all based on the cyclicism, and this mind is an amazing mind. And it works also. They predict, and they don't stop with all this. They predict eclipses. They predict all kinds of things, and it's so mind-boggling. And astronomical events they predict. They predict drought. They predict floods. They predict all these things, and it is just mind-boggling. And so there is something to be said about all this. So important question, and something to think about, Haraprasad, is this idea of time. Remember one thing. Every day that this time is a concept becomes obvious to us when you analyze deep sleep. When I'm awake, this time is so real to me. Real. Time is real. Of course, I'm looking at the clock. It is 7:54 a.m. and I'm so conscious. Time is just, the clock is constantly ticking. And who cannot be aware of this time? And thanks to this modern world, so-called modern world, they make you even more conscious of time. And even Modi has established this biometric system, it seems, in his offices. And so even government employees these days are becoming conscious of time. I mean, this has, only God can do something like this. In India, if a government employee says, no, I have to go to office, that means some change is really happening. And so much consciousness is there of time. We have taken time for granted. And the Shastram is reminding us, by the way, time is also part of the creation. And in fact, you create it every day. You go to Laya, time disappears. There's no time. And then when you wake up, time is in your mind, Haraprasad. Think about it. Think about this statement. Mm-hmm. Time is in the mind of the human being. Let that be a homework for us.
Okay.
Outside this mind, there is no time.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? Something to think.
Good
question. Yeah.
Thank you.
I have a question.
So Mohini first, and then Prasad. Everybody else can mute yourselves.
If creation is mithya, why do we need to know about creation?
Yeah, so creation is mithya. Why do we need to know about creation? So, this body is part of the creation. And I am concerned about this body, mind, sense complex. Because it's me. I am the guy who has questions, who has conflicts, who is trying to eke out a living. And I am the person, self-conscious being, who is asking all these questions. And so, in the view of Advaita Vedanta, that question about the self, which leads us to Atma, and which makes us say, this Atma is imperishable. This Atma is Satchidananda Swarupa, Sanyastishtati Sa Atma. We saw that. That Atma, if it is all pervasive, see, it can't be all pervasive. If you say this Atma is a small little thing, then it has dimensions. Then that means it can't be eternal. It can't be Nityam. We can't call our daughter as Nitya unless there is a Nitya Atma, correct? Because this body is Anitya. We don't call our daughter Anitya. We say Nitya. Come, Nitya come. That is not Anitya anyway. So that Nitya has to be all pervasive. Therefore, the world jumps into the picture. Because all pervasive means the entire creation. And so the minute I ask questions about myself, after some time, the question of the world comes. So even though the question of Jagat comes, we are not deviating from the topic of what? Topic of the self, topic of Atma. So it is not like we are covering a different topic. Because if you don't talk about the world, then the question will arise, how can this Atma statement be understood by you? Self-conscious, all-pervasive Atma. A statement was made earlier. How all-pervasive you can accept if you don't analyze Jagat? Which means you will ask the question, hey, wait a minute, you're saying Atma is all-pervasive? Yes. Yeah. So my Atma and your Atma, is it same? Yeah, it is the same. And everybody else's Atma is the same? Yes, same. What about the space in between these Atmas? That also is Atma only. Oh, really? Then all this planet? Yeah, that is also Atma. So that question will come. So the Shastra has to answer your question about all pervasiveness. So therefore, Jagat automatically comes in. And therefore, then the equation also is there between Jiva and Jagat. And Jiva or Jiva and Ishvara. Therefore, Ishvara also comes in. Therefore, who created this world concept has to come in. And so this triangle is there. Jiva on one side, Jagat, the world, and then Ishvara on the other side. So Jiva, Jagat, Ishvara, Vicharaha becomes natural in Vedanta. Okay?
To explain some of the concepts of Brahman, which is like all-pervading, or it's Nitya, it's there all the time, we need to have a concept of Jagat, which explains that pervasiveness, all-pervasiveness. So we use it just to understand a concept and then reject it.
No, there is nothing to reject. We understand Jagat as Mithya. We understand this Shariram as Mithya. And we understand Brahma to be all-pervasive. We understand that the Jagat is sustained by Brahma. We understand that the body is nothing but Brahma. Brahma is not the body, but the body is Brahma. Jagat is Brahma, but Brahma is not Jagat. All this we understand. And then my idea of myself is completely different. Then it just happens to be that when I say I, my I is not referring to this body, but my vision of I is completely different. So nothing to reject per se. When I know that the earth is revolving around the sun, and still I see the sun revolving around the earth, I don't reject anything. I don't reject the sun. I don't reject the earth. I don't reject any movement. I don't reject the Panchangam. In fact, I use the Panchangam every day to figure out when is the sunrise and when is the next Sthiti starting. Everything is there based on this revolution only. So everything is taken. But I know the Tattva. I know the Tattva.
So it's just a paradigm shift, like you think differently, you understand everything and just change the way you think and pursue reality.
That's right. It's a huge paradigm shift. Correct. Correct. It's not an ordinary paradigm shift. Correct. Okay, Prasad, go ahead.
So extending the explanation here.
If you want to leave, you're welcome to leave. You're not obligated to stay. Go ahead.
So we talked about Srushti, Pralaya. So I'm actually asking from the Vedantic perspective, the basic question or the tenet or the premises on which the creation itself. So if everything is Satya, is one Satya, everything else is Mithya, right? There's only one Satya. So in other words, I am shrinking three Satyas, what we talk about, into one Satya, which is the pure consciousness. So from the point of view of pure consciousness, which is existence, is there really death and birth? Like in a dream, there is no birth and death, which we consider as error. Similarly, the question is that, is there actually a creation? So is there any birth and death? It's within the pure conscious perspective, which is a continuum. For example, my body is changing. from youth to sickness, oldness. Death is a change. So it continues. So why should I talk about death and birth itself? Am I clear on the question?
Yeah. So you're asking why, when there is no such thing as birth and death, why are you talking about the so-called creation, implying a birth of creation? Yeah. So that is the question. So yeah, to understand that birth and death are mithya itself is a big leap. So the body has a birth. We don't say the body has no birth. Body has a birth, no doubt. Date of birth is there only for the body. And the body is, of course, not going to survive. And it will perish. So maybe the jiva leaves the body. And then after that, the body is not useful. The body is still there. There's no life in this body. And we note down the date and time and say, this is the time the person passed away. But the body is still there. And later on, it gets mixed up with earth, joins the earth. So there is a date of birth for the body, there is a date of death for the body. We don't say no to that. But we say that is mithya, and we say, yes, this Sat-Chit that you are does not have a birth or death. Cannot have a birth and death. This is what we say, which I think you have recognized already. You're saying that this Atma has no Janma and no Mrityu. And that is also why we talk about creation initially and then we drop the word creation. We come to the conclusion that there is creation. If you think of creation as something appeared out of nothing, there was nothing before and then something appeared. If you think of that as creation, we say, no, such a thing is not possible. Only there is a time when, like, the ocean is there, it's calm, and afterwards you see there are so many waves, you can start counting waves, and there are so many waves, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. These waves did not come out of nothing. Before this world of waves were there, Brahman, the water was already there. And you call it this new tsunami has come, etc. But before the tsunami also, there was Brahma. There is ocean. And long ago also, there must have been a tsunami which ended. Now the tsunami took birth and then the tsunami has ended. So we don't talk about. So that is our idea of creation. Yes, we start with creation, but we say this creation cannot have a beginning because time itself is part of the creation. And therefore, the cyclic idea comes. Cyclic means no time. Time is just a means for us to go on with our life on a day-to-day basis. Because we need that time. We need to say, you come at a particular time, class is at a particular time, I need to go to work at a particular time. It is night time, daytime, all this. Time is useful, no doubt. But time is mithya. Any mithya will have a birth and a death. And can be born again and can die again. Okay?
So my point is that is Vyavaharika. Now, from the pure conscious perspective, then that doesn't make sense, right? From Paramarthika sense, Satya.
Correct. It is all Vyavaharika. You're right. It's all Vyavaharika. And when you bring Paramarthika there is no birth for consciousness. There is no date of birth for consciousness.
Correct. So no creation also for that matter. So the creation.
Correct. You can't say, where is consciousness? You can't say, when was consciousness born? Correct. Somebody else had a question? No. Okay. So, 8 to 8. I thought I will say a few words about this camp that happened last week.
Shall I stop the recording here or should I?
Let the recording be on.
Okay.
So go ahead and okay, I've muted everybody. So there were 2 series of talks by Swami Paramarthanandaji. In the morning 6:30 to 7:30 we covered the topic of Advaita Makarandam. Advaita Makarandam is a text that was written by Lakshmidhara Kavi. Person called Lakshmidhara Kavi. And somebody, Venkateshanji, mentioned, we don't talk about history. That's because of the cyclic nature. History is not a big thing in our mind. History becomes big if there is a linear time. If the religion proposes a linear time, then history becomes very important because I have to establish the greatness of my God. Because my God is the one who created this world and you better worship my God. So history becomes so important. And there is a pressure to prove that you are later. Your God is later, he is newer, but he is not the real God also. Because the original God is my God. So that history is there. Why I said that is, when the Swamiji, they talk about it, they generally don't say, when did Lakshmidhara Kavi live? What was his time? Was this book written in this century, last century, some centuries ago? All this they don't talk about. Neither do the students ask this question also. So that's our tradition. So Lakshmidhara Kavi wrote Advaita Makarandam. And therefore it is not a Prasthanatrayam. So it is not Shruti, it is Smriti. So when we say Shruti Smriti Purananam, I owe you all an explanation of these verses. I will do that sometime. So this comes under the category of Smriti. And then in Shastram we talk about 3 things. Shrotavyam, Mantavyam, Nidhidhyaasitavyam. So like that, Yajnavalkya tells Maitreyi that you must first listen, Shravanam Kuru, then Mananam Kuru, and Nidhidhyasanam Kuru. You first hear about the Shastram from somebody who knows. And then Mananam Kuru. Once you understand, you have grasped certain points, important points, then you clarify doubts that you have. Mananam. Some doubts will be there. Doubts will be there only when something is to be understood. When something is purely to be believed, there won't be any doubts. Belief, because you just have to believe. Where there can be a doubt, there cannot be a doubt. Okay. So then he says Mananam Kuru, then he says Nidhidhyasanam Kuru. Means you now understood Satyam, Mithya, and all these, all the Tattvam, the Shastram is telling you. Now Nidhidhyasanam Kuru, may you meditate on that. May that become a reality for you. Because until now I've been conditioned into thinking differently. And so now I have to consciously tell myself who I am. And like somebody comes from America and for a 3-week vacation, and they come and you take them in a car, take them around, and they come to the right side, thinking that right side is the passenger seat, because in America, left side is driver. Left side is driver. In India, right side is driver's seat. So they are used to left side driver's seat and they want to be sitting next to you, so they come to the right. Then they look at the steering wheel, then they'll go back to the other side. Correct? It happens all the time. So because the mind is conditioned, even though I know what the truth is, that truth is not yet real, not yet manifest in my life. I still seem to have some old ideas, and old ideas of insecurity are there. And that has to be neutralized, and that is Nidhidhyasana. Okay. Now, why I said all this is, this text, some texts are Shravana Pradhanam, means they tell you, they teach you about the Shastra. Some texts are Manana Pradhanam, means they ask questions and clarify doubts. Okay. And some texts are Nidhidhyasana. So Swamiji said, this book, this small book, it's a small thin booklet of only a few verses, probably about say 15 times 2 or something, 3, maybe no more than 30, 40 verses. And is Manana Pradhanam, he said. So Manana Pradhanam means he assumes you have listened to the Shastra. And therefore he will ask questions, etc. I will use words and Avastatrayam. Atma is Avastataya Sakshi. Atma is Panchakoshatitaha. All this I know. And I have studied some Upanishads, I have studied the Shastram, and now Mananam comes. So let me do this. There is a...
I have Jayakumar ji.
Yeah, you have with you, right?
This is the book.
Yeah, go ahead and show that book. I was actually, this power, the laptop is warning me that it's the power is low. So
This book has got 28 verses.
how many verses?
28 verses.
28 verses. Okay. Yeah. Small booklet. So that is Advaita Makarandam. And so sometimes so concepts are somewhat involved. And Swamiji, of course, Swami Paramarthanandaji beautifully explained those concepts. Then evening talk was on Uddhava Gita. And beautiful story is that all the devatas, including Shiva and Brahma, all came to earth and knocked on Krishna's door and said, "Hey Krishna, come on. It's time for you to go to Vaikuntha. Enough." And Krishna says, "Yes, friends, I know time is up, but I have a couple of last minute things to do. And so let me finish that and come." So this Krishna had a devotee, Bhakta called Uddhava. And Uddhava said, "You please, Krishna, when you go, you take me with you. This world is not for me." And Krishna says, "Wait, not so soon. You have a role to play here." And he starts teaching Uddhava. And the first part of Uddhava Gita is Dattatreya Gita. And so Krishna tells Uddhava, "Let me tell you the story. Long ago, there was a king called Yadu Maharaja, and he met Dattatreya Maharshi, Avadhuta. So Avadhuta sannyasi Dattatreya. And they had a conversation. And there Avadhuta Dattatreya was telling, not Uddhava, telling Yadu Maharaja about how he learned, what all he learned from so many things from the world itself. And like that, there's a beautiful story. So what I learned from this what he used the word fish hawk, he said, fish hawk. Osprey is the word that is used. So something like a hawk, which feeds on prey. And it seems it had a piece of meat in its hand. And then all the other birds came after him and kept on attacking this hawk. And the hawk was pestered. The hawk was, it was just tormented. Yeah, that's the word, tormented. Then the hawk realized, it dropped the piece of flesh and it let go. And after that, no bird tormented the hawk, and it led a very happy life. So Dattatreya tells Yadu Maharaja, so I learned from this hawk that aparigraha, this value this one is hoarding, constantly hoarding. And the richer you become, all these people start coming to you asking for donations. So nobody goes to a street beggar and says, please give me some donation for my temple. No, nobody does. So the minute you construct a 2-story bungalow, then people start knocking on your door. So he says, aparigraha is a value. So like that, what did I learn from this human body? Vairagyam I learned. What did I learn from a girl who was about to get married? Also, I learned something. Oh my God, beautiful stories. The story itself is so good. If you don't mind, I can share that story with you. This girl was there, it seems, and all the relatives living in that small house those days went away for shopping, and suddenly a family walked in. Because she's of marriageable age, they walked in to ask her parents that we would like to marry our son to your daughter. But nobody was there at home, only this girl was there. And then the girl did her best to, keep them happy, satisfied. And then she went inside to give them something to eat. Nothing was there. Very poor family. And some rice, this rice was there. And, this nil. So she started pounding the rice to make some flour and maybe make something out of it. And then this noise was coming because she was wearing all these bangles. So chal, 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 chal like this. Then suddenly she thought, it seems, oh, this is not good. I'm disturbing the guests and they will wonder where this noise is coming from. So she removed a lot of her bangles and kept just a couple in both hands. And then she started doing again pounding. And still some noise was coming, it seems. Because there are 2 bangles left in each hand. And then he goes on and he says, oh, then she removed one more bangle. And then after that, there was no noise. And then she did her job and everybody was happy thereafter. So I learned from this girl that Advaita, he suddenly brings an Advaita. So being one, everything is one. And whenever there is Dvaita, there is fear, there is noise, there is conflict, and there is all this insecurity. And from this girl, I learned that everything here is Brahma. Like that, he makes a giant leap from the story. So like this, we have all these beautiful stories. And what he did was a continuation. I think this is like 2nd, 3rd, and 4th chapter. So the 4th chapter was concluded this week. And the year before last or last year, he did the 2nd chapter and so forth. So I think probably next time when he comes, we will continue with the other chapters. So very beautiful, very beautiful. I had heard this Dattatreya Gita long ago from Swami Tattavabodha taught us. He came to Wisconsin and I drove from near Chicago to Wisconsin long ago, 1997 or 98 or something. So good memories of that. So that was the one we had. Classes got over on Sunday. Saturday evening was the last class. And so, all right. So we will stop with that. Any not questions, but any thoughts? Anything you missed?
Did you record these classes or no?
Yeah. So I have. So we have, some of us have ordered these things. They are going to make these CDs available. And so I've also given my name. And so I will get the CDs. But now the question is, how do we make it available to all of you is the question.
Did they post it to US or no, if we order them?
I know they will do courier to India. They did mention that. So if you pay so much, so and so, they will courier, they said. The Ashram Vidya Gurukulam will do that. And
will we be able to buy it from Salisbury at a later date?
So I don't know. I don't know how the Sailasburg and Ammangudi ashrams work with each other. So probably not likely, because yeah, I don't think it is likely. But we'll find some other way. We'll find some other way. We can probably put it on a Google Drive or something. If I have some help, maybe we can make that happen.
Jayakumarji,
Yeah.
the word Makaranda, what does that mean?
Yeah,
Quickly.
Makarandam is honey. Honey. So the honey, you can translate it as the sweetness of the honey of Advaita, something like that. Or the honey which is concentrated by the bees, honey bees, and which represents Advaita, something like that. Okay. Good. So if anybody, I'll try to find out if we have if I find a volunteer here in India, then what we can do is we can ship those CDs to that person, and then we can put it in a drive so that those who are interested can listen to it. That's a possibility. So.
That would be appreciated. Thank you, Jayakumarji. Whatever options we have, just let us know.
Sure. Okay. Thanks to all. It's to 8:25 here.
Thank you, Jayakumar.
Meet again next week. Namaste. Hari Om.
Dhanyavada.
Dhanyavada.